Vacation Rental Machine helps hosts just like you learn how to start, grow, and scale your short-term rental business. This show is all about creating systems that help you automate your business, giving you more time and money freedom. If you're ready to start living the vacation rental life, then subscribe to this podcast today. Come and join us on our Facebook group, The Host Nation, where we'll be talking about starting, automating, and scaling a short-term rental business. Now, on to the show. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Vacation Rental Machine. In this episode, we're going to be talking about things or places to avoid or things to bring up that are concerning if you are planning to invest in a vacation rental. So, John, what are some of the big things that we should be looking out for if we are looking to invest?
Yeah, I wanted to do this one following the other episode, just to add some caution to certain things, or just put some perspective on ways to kind of think when you have certain things that are possibly going to happen with your rental. One thing that I would suggest that you avoid, in some locations it's very hard to avoid, but there's a liability issue with this one thing. And it's something that I would caution you against, and that's actually having a pool in your rental. Just be sure to be cautious about the regulations regarding that. Make sure your insurance is covering of all of those issues. It's nobody wants a horror story. I don't want to see one in the news, and I don't want to see anybody's name that I know associated with anything like this. So just be cautious of it. Make sure that if you do have it, that you are set up appropriately. One of the other things that every one of us should kind of be avoiding, and it's mainly because of how frequently they can change, and that's condo associations and HOAs. If you have a rental in a condo, and let's just say at the time they don't have any rules or anything that stop you from having a short-term rental inside the building, but your neighbor complains to the board, and the board votes on Wednesday next month, and maybe you just got into this condo a couple years ago, or maybe recently, and your plan and strategy to fund or to actually keep this place is to lease it out. Well, next Wednesday, the board comes out with a decision to change the rules, and they strictly prohibit any type of short-term rentals inside the building. You don't want that to happen to you, because that creates a big headache for yourself. Now you own this asset. What are you going to do with it? If your plan was to rent it out, you're either going to have to go to a long-term tenant, which probably takes away the enjoyment that you thought you would have in the property yourself, maybe because it was at a great location. So avoid those.
HOAs and condos can be a big, real pain in the neck. Like John was saying, some people, they purchase these properties because they have an intent to short-term rent it. It's cheap. The condos and HOAs, they're maybe in like really prime locations. So, it's something that kind of first comes to mind. Like, lots of people, this is their first purchase, and they're just like, I want to be able to rent it out. It's a nice area, everything's clean. But there are cases like in Virginia, there's a case with Scott versus Walker where someone purchased a property with the intent to short-term rent it. There weren't any regulations, and at first it was okay, but then all of a sudden the HOA is allowed to change its rules, its regulations, and this person actually fought the HOA all the way up to the Supreme Court level. They ended up winning it, but just imagine how much pain and how much trouble that is going to be, fighting the people that are supposed to be your neighbors, that you're supposed to be getting along with, and now they have this kind of like target on you, and it's just not going to be a helpful experience for your guests. They could change the door locks, they could do, they could make it so that everybody needs a certain code or a certain type of key, and then you have to worry about the key exchanges and stuff like that. It's just, there's so many things and ways that they can try to prevent you and fight you against that usually the best case scenario is just look elsewhere. There are other opportunities that aren't HOAs and condos. So just maybe it's just kind of better to leave them be.
Julian, you just reminded me of one point to bring up, and that's from my experience. I said this in one of the other episodes, and this is something that we should have avoided back at the time. That was getting into a place that actually didn't fit our model of check-in. So for us, we're pretty much self-check-in everywhere. No interaction with any human is really needed. And this location, there was a doorman that basically you had to go through him to get the key to the room. And what happened in these scenarios was that's the first person that your guests see. And if they're having a bad day, that kind of spews over to, the first person that they see. Hey, they're coming to this great apartment, but this dude has some type of attitude. And he's like, what? You're with who? And what's your name? And, nobody wants to go through that when they really just want to get somewhere, probably take a shower and get to bed. So if your model is to have self-check-in, yes, even if the landlord says yes, then I think you should really say no, because this is just one of those things where it's going to complicate your system. It's actually going to make things a lot harder, and you'll be stuck with it for the duration of the lease or whatever your agreement might be with that property. So don't get stuck in those scenarios.
We're going to be making a separate episode talking about some of the key things that your unit should be set up for, and ease of access is actually one of the criteria that Airbnb uses to give you a rating. And we're going to be diving more into that, but like John was saying, you want to create systems that are going to be as easy and pain-free. And when you start adding in these things like HOAs or key exchanges and stuff like that, it really starts to complicate your systems and makes it more laborious. And that's really something that you really want to avoid if you want your vacation rental machine to run as smoothly as possible.
Definitely. One other point to bring up is unless you're selling this as the experience, having a hood or ghetto experience for your guest is not going to be pleasant. No matter what you can do to the inside of the apartment or house or wherever you are, when they leave to go walk around, if they feel like they're threatened or something is unsafe about the area, that will always hurt you in a review. So be cautious of those areas. I do know that there's a lot of areas that are in transition. If you can, I would just say, hold on to them. Don't actually put your guests there, because what will actually happen is the people that know not to go there won't go there. But the people that come from overseas that maybe have somewhat of a language barrier will probably come and stay at that property. And when they go out and they walk the streets and somebody says something to them like, hey, you need to get the H up out of here, that's not going to be a good experience. And they're going to call you scared. And that's not going to lead to a good review. You're probably going to lose the reservation. So don't think that's a great property to kind of just put out there. Avoid that if you can. Regulation is always important to look at when you're looking to lease out a property. Make sure you take a look at it. Make sure you're compliant. I said it in the last episode. I'll say it again. Certain places are talking about it more frequently than other places, like California. They're always doing something about it. That's somewhat good and bad. At the same time, there's other places that haven't even put it up on the docket yet to talk anything about it. So just be cautious of regulations, but don't really fall for the speculation in those regulations. You'll find a lot of news channels saying, hey, 100% against it. And really, that's just speculation. They're not going to pass too many things like that, especially going in the future. So be mindful of it.
So we're going to be wrapping up this episode of things that you should be looking out for, some of the concerns when you are looking to invest in your vacation rental machine. And talk to your host in the next episode. Keep on hosting. Hope you hosts found value in this episode. If you did, please go on over to iTunes and leave us a review, as that would greatly support the show. If you'd like to connect with John, the community, and I, then go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation. Talk to your host in the next episode. Keep on hosting.